Hi everyone, Muse Melicina here. My baby's asleep on my arm, so I'm going to be kind of quiet. Thank you for joining me. So I didn't get to do my Decolonizing Wellness lecture yesterday. I was doing all kinds of other things, but here's a Saturday one for you. Okay, so I just read this awesome article that I posted on Utimia's Facebook page, about telling a poor white person about privilege. And it was just so well written about the nuances of privilege. And when it comes to our wellness, the reason this comes up for me specifically within the realms of healing is that we cannot fully heal ourselves without first recognizing the ways in which we have been historically traumatized. Ancestrally traumatized is another way to look at that, and familially, like how our circumstances are contributing to our inability to be well. So this person who wrote this article, I don't know her name, but she was talking about like extreme poverty as a white woman, that she lived in a trailer and didn't have running water and didn't have heat and ate ramen noodles and all these things, etc. Super duper poverty, right? But how one of the ways, if you view it as privilege, she could open any magazine or turn on the television and see people like her represented, right? And the list goes on and on. I highly recommend you read it. But talking about how people self-medicate on cigarettes and alcohol and prescription drugs or over-the-counter drugs and then have heart attacks, right? Or when we are constantly upset or angry or in fear that we're not going to have water, or in fear of the abuse of our predecessors, the humans that raise us, if they get sad or mad or whatever and they beat us, etc., right? Also privilege, or lack of privilege, right? It's been a really interesting thing for myself as a Chicana and a light-skinned Chicana who was raised in a predominantly brown community, or all brown community actually, feeling completely discriminated against by my own people, and that feeling very not privileged. But then once I grew up, realizing how I believe my light skin helped me in my academic ways, like in high school specifically, where my high school has been accused, and rightly so, of discriminatory actions by putting light-skinned people in like the X classes, right? And then all of my like brown and black brothers and sisters automatically are in the lower classes, right? I didn't realize these kinds of things until much later, especially because I felt so discriminated against by my cousins and my family, etc., growing up. Because of my light skin, but understanding that in the grand scheme of things, it's a privilege to have the light skin, even though in my microcosm, it was very painful for me, right? So anyways, my point in saying this is realizing that helped my internal landscape heal a lot, right? Where I could like have compassion and have forgiveness for the ways I was personally discriminated against in my own home life. As opposed to just being like mad at my family, right? Or also in that, having to really honor and honor is an interesting word, but yes, honor the like rape lineage of my culture, right? Honor the fact that like my ancestors were literally indigenous people who were like raped and pillaged by European people, and that's how I came about, and what that looks like as like a fighting bloodline in me, right? Also, when I finally accepted my privilege, right, as my light skin privilege specifically, but also the privilege that I had a mama who worked her fucking ass off, a single mother who wasn't a junkie. That's also a privilege, right? Like my mom was a single mom who worked her ass off and went to work so that I could have an education, and she loved me while she didn't beat me. You know, that's also a privilege. And when I finally contended with all the privileges that I have, it gave me the opportunity to use that shit for good, right? Like, Creator didn't give me all of these gifts so that I could throw them away. And when it comes to white privilege specifically, and my friends who are white people who have like tons of white privilege, including the historical ancestral fuck shit of white privilege of like great great grandpas who were slave owners and thieves of land, etc. There's this kind of growing, or in my experiences, especially in festival culture, where like these white kids are like, if that's not me, and they literally like step away from all their privilege and then kind of end up being mooches, if you will, off of like people of color or poorer people because they deny all of their privileges. And I could see why that would be a thing that they would want to do, but instead, why don't you like get your great granddaddy's money and like pay a bunch of black people reparations? Why don't you get your great granddaddy's land and give a bunch back to indigenous people, right? Like, or leverage all of those resources to do really cool stuff in this day and age for your people, no matter what color they are, who are less privileged than you. And same in intersectionality wise, like whatever privileges you have, even if you are a person who is more melanated than other people, but like you're somebody who comes from doctors and lawyers and you have more education and you have more money, how can you show up in a way that is using your privilege for good and using it to help others leverage their privilege or heal. So all of these things are healing. So recently, if you've been watching my stories, I've been posting stuff about reparations and about giving land back, because this is all part of our healing. We can't heal without accountability for how we are hurting, right? Like, you're not going to heal your mama issues if you're in denial that your mom, like when your mom would whatever, it fucked with you, right? You're not going to heal that. So this is really about accountability, and decolonizing is all about agency, and we can't have full agency if full accountability. So that's my soapbox for today. I am sitting in great, great reverence and gratitude of my privilege that my partner is able to hustle. We live meagerly, but he takes care of the bills so I can stay home with my baby boy, and I'm super grateful about that. And I will sit here and give myself the opportunity to leverage that privilege so that I can raise a person who doesn't feel lack, and that's not to say pass any judgment on anybody who's still in this place that the fucking powers that be have dictated, where you have less privileges. That's to say, like, to remind you, what do you have? What do you have right now that you can be grateful for in this effed up, not fair world? And how can you use that in mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically in a way that helps